over a lot one summer. So here are two stories from there. So as I mentioned before, on the first night I was sleeping in my aunt's room with my cousin. At one point in the middle of the night, my cousin said I woke up and started pulling her hair, saying, "They're coming," yelling over and over again. What's creepy is that I never remembered, and no one else heard anything, and the rooms are literally across the hallway from each other. Third story, same house, just the next night. So my cousin didn't want to sleep with me after that, so I was sleeping with my other cousin that night. By the way, they're all girls. Anyways, so we were all in the living room watching a movie, and two of them were studying slash doing homework. So I got tired and fell asleep on the couch. Then my cousins all went to the room to either sleep or just study. Afterwards, my cousin stopped studying and got ready to go to sleep. She remembered that I was still on the couch, so she went to wake me up. She said that it was sleep. She said, "Vanessa, come on, we have to go to my room to go to sleep." She said I kept looking back at something and that after a bit I said, "Can you wait for her with me?" She said she did not want to sleep with me after that, but didn't want to leave me alone, just in case I was possessed. So she took me, but I never remember any of these things or saying them. That is so crazy. The fact that you don't remember what you said or why, like, why were you saying those things? That's my question. Like, why were you saying those things? Like, that is so specific. Can you wait for her with me? I don't know. Like, I wonder what was going on. Were you still dreaming? Maybe you were still dreaming, but your eyes open. Maybe you were sleeping. I wonder if your cousins ever experienced the same exact thing. Like, has that happened to them? And I wonder what's their paranormal encounters since you are very sure that that happens often. So let's look at this picture that you sent me. Oh no. Wait, you guys. I'm gonna pop up the picture, blur out their faces. There's so okay, let me read the caption of this. It looks like the silhouette of someone. And as you can see, there is an extremely bright light as if an angel or something. But we know for sure it wasn't anyone standing in the hallways because they would have known.
I'm trying.
Jesus! Help me, someone!
The fact that the doorway, how you say, is super bright, as if it's like an entry to another dimension, like it's a portal. Maybe it's a portal. So just by the picture alone, that house is definitely haunted. I don't know what that was, but that creeped me out. It didn't give me a good vibe. Let's just say that. Oh my god, no. That is creepy. And the fact that it was away and it took forever to load. And that is a really man with a fake name right now is being perfect. But thank you so much for important sharing the picture. For having tonight. So now I'm gonna let you go to update and also the children share the scary stories. But thank you to everyone who has thank you guys so much. Thank you so much. But other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed. See you guys. Hey guys, and welcome to my channel. My name is Daisy. For today's video, I'm going to be reading some of my subscribers' scary stories. If you're interested in like this, subscribe, go ahead and get straight into it. Let's start with story number 1. Hi Daisy, I'm from El Paso, Texas. I came across your channel looking for some scary stories. I have saved all of them and can't wait and also thank you so much for actually making great Hey, it's so good. Let's get started. So first, I can take the girl. I looked at my older two sisters and I told them when I was around 11, 12 years old. It was friendship with my sister. I was always afraid of the woman in the room. It tripped me out so much. I always made sure it was closed before I went to bed and always needed to keep my bedroom open. The same I made sure it was closed while I did. I always made sure it was Anyways, it was a weekend and I remember thinking it wasn't too bad. Maybe I was I felt the need to look into my room for my nephew who was asleep. My older sister was out. I noticed the white mark on the edge of the bed. He had a long dark hair behind his feet. My eyes adjusted after a few seconds. That movement, my sister adjusting in her sleep. She was actually closer to the wall. I guess that white form noticed my realization. Freaked out and covered my eyes and didn't tell her anything. She blew it off and said I was just being safe. But as I got older and was out of her phone, she ended up telling me she occasionally sees someone's small head peeking into her room when she's watching TV. I had touched a layout of what my childhood phone would look like and put it right here for you guys. So you can have a better picture of how I was able to look into their shuffling feet. I can remember at what age I was when I experienced this. I was just a year or two older than my previous story. My aunt that lived with us because my mom helped take care of her while she had her dialysis treatment. She would sit on one of the couches in the living room. My sister and I shared a bunk bed and I slept close to the bed. This night, nothing was different. I went about my day with no issues or weird feelings. It was bedtime and I finished closing the bunk and my friend went to make us to sleep in my bed. I fell asleep fast but ended up waking up. I wasn't sure what time it was, but it was all dark and quiet. This told me that everyone else was asleep. I remember waking up as soon as I was awake. I remember sitting in the floor. If I complained, I hear faint I could also hear just when I felt after I waited. hyperventilating and waking me up, pulled the blanket over me, and tried to speak more noise than it was already making. With my panic breathing, eventually the horrible view of my cousin disappeared, and with the puppy there, I still used the courage to cover myself. I don't know how I was doing it. It looks like I was facing looked on top of me under the blanket. I was already angry. I told my mom all about it and she didn't say anything. Later, she gave me a friend of hers as a gift. She we ended up
Unbelievable.
not a health. I That's all I have. If you'd like to hear them. Thank you for taking the time to include your followers' stories. Sincerely, Paola. Thank you so much, Paola. Thank you. We will be able to put these stories right now. Your stories to me, and of course, I would love to hear it. I want to share it with future murder stories. Definitely let me know. Thank you. Thanks.
Shit.
It all starts with he lived in a small There were no doors, just a ground. DAICY. What is an e-stem and how do I get one? Well, what you want to be using is an like every family member has a story to tell about their paranormal experiences. I picked out some to tell today. It all starts with my mom. My mother has told me she experienced paranormal events ever since she was a little girl. Back in the 80s, when my mom was around 5 or 6, she lived in a small house with both her parents. She would sleep in the same room as them too. One night, when they were asleep, she felt her dad sit up from the bed. She heard him talking to her mom about a strange noise coming from the kitchen. My mom then sat up as well, and that's when she heard it. A light tapping noise coming from the kitchen. It sounded like dancing and jumping along with high-pitched giggling. Her dad grabbed the gun he had close to him, then sat up as well, and that's when she heard it. A light tapping noise coming from the kitchen. It sounded like dancing and jumping along with high-pitched giggling. Her dad grabbed the gun he had close to him and slowly got out of bed. He walked to the kitchen. It sounded like dancing and jumping along with high-pitched giggling. Her dad grabbed the gun he had close to him and slowly got out of bed. He walked quietly, not wanting to enter the kitchen. It sounded like dancing and jumping along with high-pitched giggling. Her dad grabbed the gun he had close to him and
slowly got out of bed. He walked quietly, not wanting the intruder to hear him. Being the small house it was, there were no doors, just a curtain separating the two rooms. Her dad stood in front of the curtains for a while, building up his courage. He slipped his fingers through the curtains and carefully opened them just a bit to see who was there. My mom and her mom sat on the bed waiting for him to make a move, like shoot or walk in on whoever it was, but he didn't. He stood there with a confused and shocked face. Her mom got worried about what was happening, so she too got out of bed and walked where he was. She peeked into the kitchen, and the moment she did, her face became as shocked and confused as my grandpa's. Being the curious little girl she was, my mom jumped out of bed and walked in between of her parents' legs. What she saw was something that sent shivers down her back. Small men were dancing on the top of the table. Duendes. It has to be duendes. I know you're thinking, this is silly, and I don't blame you. I laughed a bit when my mother told me because I thought she was kidding. But my mom wasn't the type to make these things up, and we don't ever joke about these things. But back to the story. My mom told me that she could see the small people jumping and dancing on the table. The sound of their high-pitched laughter was a sound she wishes she could forget. But an event like this can traumatize a little girl for the rest of her life. She described them as some type of gnomes. Her mom took hold of her and took her back to bed. That's where she ended it, saying she was too scared to even remember what happened next. All she knew was that this wasn't the only time she experienced something like this. Her next story is what made me look at my toys in a whole new way. When she was still little, she remembers a time when her dad and her were visiting a friend's house. It was getting late, so her dad decided to sleep over for the night. The owner of the house put them in a room full of dolls, old-fashioned type of dolls, stuffed animals, and Barbies. They were all displayed on shelves, and some were placed on rocking chairs for the floor. A room like this is already creepy enough. Anyways, after her dad got the bed ready, the two went to sleep. My mom started to wake up in the middle of the night due to some light tapping noise. She didn't think much of it at first. It could have been anything. When she was only half awake, she realized that the tapping noise sounded more like tiny footsteps inside the room. She turned in the bed to face away from her dad and see what was going on behind her. At that moment, her heart dropped and her face became paler than snow. The dolls that were on the floor had gotten up on their own 2 feet and started to walk around the room. Some just stayed sitting down and turned their heads to look around. When one of the Barbie dolls turned her gaze towards my mom, she nearly screamed. It was like they were inside the movie Toy Story, except this was real and a spookier version of it. My mom sat up on her bed and quickly woke up her dad. Her dad tiredly got up and looked at his daughter. "What's wrong?" he asked her. "The dolls, they're walking," my mom whispered in a panic. Her dad shot out of the bed and took a good look around. He couldn't believe it. The whole room had come to life. He told my mom everything is alright and wrapped his arms around her and covered her with a blanket. My mom said she felt a lot safer when her dad held her close like that, but she could tell he was just as afraid as she was. I don't even know how she could even sleep after seeing that, but the next morning they left as soon as possible without telling the owners about what happened. Now I know why my mom refused to watch Toy Story with me when I was younger. She told me one last story. When she was around the age of 6, her dad and her were at her aunt's house for a visit. They stayed there for a whole day until it was around 11 p.m. Her dad got off the couch and took my mom into his arms. He carried her to the door and was about to leave, but his sister insisted that he stay for the night because of the time. They didn't have a car at the time, so they were going to walk back home. My grandpa told her he was fine and that he could make it home safely with my mom. He wrapped her in a blanket and left. As he walked, my mom started to fall asleep on his shoulder. But before she could fully go to sleep, she felt her dad suddenly stop in his tracks. Feeling like something was wrong, my mom lifted her head up slightly and turned her head to see why they stopped. A few feet away under the streetlight was a male figure. She described him wearing a black coat and pants, and he was fairly tall. But the one thing that stood out was that there was no head to be seen. He was completely headless and was just standing under the light in the middle of the night. Dad? My mom said in a shaky tone. Hearing her distress, he threw the blanket over her and lowered her head back onto his shoulder. What is that? Her dad didn't respond to her. He stayed silent, not daring to move a muscle. Everything will be okay, he whispered to her. My mom felt like she was going to cry from all the tension. But before she knew it, she felt her dad take a sharp turn and sprint his way across the street. Once he was on the other side of the street, he still did not slow down. He kept running as quickly as possible, like their life depended on it. My mom says she didn't even think about taking the blanket off her head, too afraid to see if those things were chasing them. Her dad didn't stop for a single rest until they got home. He placed my mother back down on her bed and stayed with her until she fell asleep. That was the last story she told me for the day. The strange thing is, before she told me this story, I was around 6 years old when I was playing at the playground at night, and not too far, I was sure I saw a man wearing all black sitting on the swings without his head. These are just a few stories that my family has. When I say everyone has one, everyone has one. My uncles, aunts, cousins, and even family friends. It would take an entire novel to tell the whole story. Your poor mother, Joe. Oh my gosh. Tell her I am so sorry that she had to go all through that, traumatized from an early age, because I am pretty sure she saw duendes. I have a video. If you are not familiar or anyone is not familiar with the topic, I'll leave that up here for you guys so you can get familiar with it. But she 100% duendes. That's 100%. She didn't even want to watch Toy Story. That's how traumatized she was. Pobrecita, that's crazy. What in the world? But thank you so much, Joe, for writing in. If you have any more stories, mira, again, like you said, your uncles, aunts, and your cousins, let me know. I loved your stories. So please, if you can, if you would like to share with us, please do. Thank you so much, and say hi to, hi brother, little brother. I'll just say it to you. Hi. Thank you so much for watching and sending in your stories. Thank you. Now moving on to our last.
Have you been in an auto accident? Injuries?
Hey Daisy, this is a scary story I'd like to share. It's actually a really weird story that I can't explain to this day. Sorry, it's a long story. Don't say sorry, we love that here. I love that here, okay? This is the story. Let me start off by saying I'm a skeptical believer. By that, I mean I believe in the paranormal, but if something weird happens, I'm not gonna automatically assume it's paranormal. I have no proof of this, so sometimes I don't even believe it myself. But I will admit, this experience was beyond strange. I feel stupid saying I visited the back rooms. If you don't know what the back rooms are, they're basically a labyrinth of randomly segmented rooms and halls. They can look like grocery stores, warehouses, department stores, unfamiliar or familiar places. Sometimes I question myself, was it all a dream? Did it really happen? Did I make it up? So what could have this been? I don't know. Ooh, I can't wait to find out. What the heck? I am confused, so let's begin. I was at the department store with my parents. At the time, I was around 16 or 17. We don't go that often anymore, but they used to go often and they'd spend so much time there. I hated going for that reason. This night, the store had very few customers and I only saw like 3 employees. We were in the kitchen area part of the store. I suddenly had to go to the bathroom. I told my parents I was going to use it. They said they'd wait for me there. I left and went to the bathroom. I have never liked this particular department store's bathroom. They're nice, big, and clean, but there's this strange vibe to them. It's dimly lit and always empty. There's a big stall at the end, and the rest are irregular-sized stalls. I went to use the big stall at the end of the bathroom, the furthest from the bathroom door. I did my business, washed my hands, and left. This is the first weird thing I noticed. The energy in that department store had changed. I'm a sensitive person to energy. It was definitely off. No one can convince me otherwise. I shook it off as me being paranoid. The next thing I noticed was that the store seemed empty. No workers or customers. I assumed the customers left and the workers went to work at another part of the store. I went to look for my mom and dad in the kitchen area of the store where they were when I left. They weren't there. I tried texting them and calling them, but my phone strangely had no signal. I brushed it off as a bad signal. It happens, I said, trying to convince myself that it was normal. Then I went around the whole store. I did a full circle. I looked in every section. I found nobody. Now this is when I started to panic inside, but stayed calm on the outside. You might be asking, why didn't you just walk out and go and see if your parents' car was still there? I don't know. That didn't cross my mind. I never even saw that as an option. I didn't ignore it. It just didn't cross my mind. Maybe it was a panic. Maybe it was something protecting me from something out there. Maybe it was something that wanted to keep me in there with it. I honestly don't know why, but I did 3 full circles. I don't know why I remember that number so clearly. But the store was quiet. The music they had been playing when me and my family first walked in was now replaced by silence, replaced by the only sound of my footsteps. It's still unnerving when I remember how my footsteps were the loudest thing in that store. It was quiet and calm, too quiet and calm. I began to panic more inside, but I kept my composure. What if they left me behind? What if they forgot about me? I can't call anyone. I felt like I was being followed and watched. It felt like something was stalking me like it's prey. I felt so uneasy and alone. It felt like I was suffocating, though I had a whole store to myself. Something felt eerie and uncomfortable. I felt so strange and not there mentally. It finally clicked in my head that I was just going in circles with no end. A thought popped into my head out of thin air. Go back to the bathroom. I went with my intuition and went back to the bathroom. Go back to the stall. I followed my intuition again. I sat on the toilet silently. After about 3 minutes or so, I checked my phone. I had signal again. I was so relieved. I texted my mom immediately. I was so scared that she wouldn't answer or that the text wouldn't go through, but it did. Moments later, she replied. Our conversation went like, "Mom, where are you?" "In the kitchen area, same place." I gathered up my courage to go and check again. I walked out and the first thing I noticed, the energy and the vibe was back to normal. The next thing I noticed was that I saw employees again. I saw the customers I had seen before again, shopping still. The music was back on. There was noise again. I quickly made my way to the kitchen area. I saw my mom and dad and I approached them and asked, "Where were you guys?" My mom asked, "Where were you? We've been waiting for a while now." It felt like I hadn't seen them for a long time. "I came looking for you too," I said to them. "We never saw you pass by or anything," my mom said, and gave me a confused look. "How long have I been gone?" I asked my mom. "Like 10 minutes. It felt longer than that. I felt cold and weird again. I got goosebumps on my arms. I told my mom I didn't feel good and she said, "Don't worry, we're going home now anyways." We checked out and left. As we drove away, I looked back at the store from my backseat car window. It felt like something there was saying goodbye to me as the store faded from the view. I don't go to that store anymore. My parents rarely go. Even now, when I pass by that store, I feel sick to my stomach. What the heck? Tell me why this reminds me of the movie Coraline, like the double realities. Oh my goodness! Like the little closet, little door opening. For me, it was like the bathroom stall. Was that the portal? Like, what was that? I don't know. So many questions here. But like you said, it could be hallucinations or maybe you fainted. But the thing is, you would have remembered waking up and being unconscious on the floor or something, but you were conscious the whole time. So what the heck? And another thing, I've never heard the expression of the back rooms. So now I know what I'm going to be researching tonight. It's Saturday night, so I know what I'm going to be researching. Me and my blanket over here typing away. But seriously, now I need to know what this is. But thank you so much for writing in. This really has me thinking and questioning my freaking existence. But thank you so much. So that was it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Next week is officially Halloween season, all month, October. I feel it. I feel it in my blood, like I just feel the spookiness is more official. But I can't wait for you guys to see what I have in store for you guys for the Halloween season. I can't wait, and I hope you guys enjoy it. I'm so excited. So definitely subscribe so you guys can see what I have for you guys. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next week.
Simply upload your videos to
videos. Hey guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Daisy. Today I will be reading my subscribers' spooky stories. So grab your snacks, grab your cobija, and let's get straight into it. Hi Daisy, my name is Rebecca, and I have many paranormal stories either for myself, family, or friends. Usually these scary stories all take place in Mexico. I'm going to tell you about an encounter that my family and I had 3 years ago with what we believe was a witch. My family is from a small rancho in Jalisco, Mexico, which is 3-4 hours away from Guadalajara. In my rancho, there are women who are brujas and practice brujeria. We're not exactly sure who the brujas are, but a few of my cousins said that he had seen one of the eldest women either turn into a crow with red eyes or come back from being a crow. I know I've heard stories from different parts of Mexico that these specific women are called lechuzas, but I've also heard in my rancho. Hey guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Daisy. Today I will be reading my subscribers' spooky stories. So grab your snacks, grab your cobija, and let's get straight into it. Hi Daisy, my name is Rebecca, and I have many paranormal stories either for myself, family, or friends. Usually these scary stories all take place in Mexico. I'm going to tell you about an encounter that my family and I had 3 years ago with what we believe was a witch. My family is from a small rancho in Jalisco, Mexico, which is 3-4 hours away from Guadalajara. In my rancho, there are women who are brujas and practice brujeria. We're not exactly sure who the brujas are, but a tío of my cousin said that he had seen one of the eldest women either turn into a crow with red eyes or come back from being a crow. I know I've heard stories from different parts of Mexico that these specific women are called lechuzas, but I've also heard that they're called by different names. Now, I believe that I had an encounter with a bruja. It was the summer of 2021. In my rancho, we host fiestas in June, so I was at my rancho with my family celebrating. On a calm night, a couple of days after the festivities had finally calmed down, my cousin, sister, and I were playing some card games at the kitchen table when my little cousin suddenly said, "We should tell scary stories, especially about the bruja." Of course, me being a scaredy cat told him that we shouldn't because it was night and we wouldn't be able to sleep. There is also superstition in my rancho that either on Tuesday or Wednesday, we shouldn't speak of brujeria or talk about it because those are the days when the brujas do their brujeria. Right after I said no to his request for scary stories, we heard a goat crying. We thought it was one of the goats my tío had next door. All of my cousins and I looked confused. It was midnight, and usually most animals are asleep by then. Why would any of them be crying? My mom and my tía were outside folding clothes that they were going to sell the next morning at the nearby tianguis, and they were closer to where the goat cried. The thing is, the house I was staying at is next to the mezcal fields, and we were also surrounded by the cerro, where the mountains are. All of us heard the goat cries from the fields, which was weird because my tio's goats were all in a small corral. The strange thing about the goat cry was that it sounded distorted. It didn't sound like a regular goat. It sounded almost human-like. I knew immediately what it was, but tried to keep my cool. The house grew quiet as we listened to the goat crying, but then it stopped. That's when my mom and Tia came inside because they thought maybe it was a coyote or a snake killing a goat. Or maybe a goat was accidentally tied up choking itself, which could be true, but it didn't feel like that. They immediately closed all the windows and doors and turning off some of the lights in the house. They told us to be quiet, and we all were, waiting to hear the goat cry again. But it never came back. After what seemed like a while, one of my little cousins went to the window, staring at the fields where we heard the goat cry. He swore he saw glowing red eyes in the dark of the fields. My tia said it must be fireflies, since in June there are fireflies. He disagreed. My cousin is a paranoid kid, so I thought he was exaggerating. But then he said to his mom, "Ma, ¿no escuchas eso? Escucho como que hay gente hablando." His mom replied, "Hijo, no es nada, nomás es la tele." But they didn't have a TV. I figured maybe it was someone else's TV from the neighbors, as we all live pretty close together. After what seemed like a long time, one of my cousins needed to head home because it was getting late. So my mom had my sister and two boy cousins take him home safely. My little cousin, the one who wanted to talk about the brujas, came up to me and asked, "Do you think it was a bruja? Because I talked about them?" I looked at him and said, "No, it can't be," just so I wouldn't scare him, even though I knew it could have been one of them, since I've heard that brujas like to mimic animal noises to lure people to their traps. I'm not sure how we managed to go to bed that night, but we all slept soundly. The next morning, we were ready to go and sell at the tianguis. So my mom went to check on my tio's goats, and they were all fine. No blood, no tracks, nothing. So what could have it been? Was it really a bruja? During the rest of my stay in Mexico, some eerie things continued to happen. For example, I would wake up super early in the morning, hearing little footsteps on the roof and giggling. People say those are duendes, but I brush it off and say it's probably iguanas. Usually, that's the extent of what I would experience. Just giggling from time to time. To this day, nothing else paranormal has happened when I'm in Mexico. And I think it's because that same summer, my mom had the house blessed by the padre. This story takes place in Michoacan, Mexico, where my family is from. My mom told me about it when I was around 10 or 13 years old. It's about her uncle, who loved to drink with his friends. He was about 20, 30 years old at the time. One night, as usual, he and his friends were drinking and getting ready to either go home or grab more beer. In the area where this story takes place, there was a large patch of trees, almost like a forest, but not too big. People avoided that path because it was said to be haunted. That night, though, my mom's uncle, drunk and feeling confident, decided to walk through it. They said that as he entered the path, it was eerily foggy and completely deserted. No one, nothing around. While walking, he saw a woman in a wedding dress standing with her back towards him. Curious and maybe a bit reckless due to the alcohol, he started calling out to her, saying things like, "¿Estás sola?" But the woman didn't respond. Emboldened, he yelled, "Enséñame tu cara. Show me your face." That's when she turned, and what he saw wasn't human. Her body was, but her face, it was the face of a dead, bloody pig. Terrified my mom's uncle ran as fast as he could, not to where he was originally headed, but straight to his parents' house. When he got there, he was frantic, shaking with fear. That night, he was so scared that he slept in the same bed as his mom and dad, unable to sleep at all. From that point on, my mom said her uncle was never the same. He slowly lost his mind and eventually died. After that, no one dared to walk through that path in the rancho alone. If they did, it was always during the day and in groups, carrying weapons for protection. Even though I don't live in Mexico, the thought of seeing the bride with a pig's face terrifies me. I get goosebumps just thinking about it. Hi Daisy. I love hearing everyone's stories, so I thought I'd share one of my many experiences my family has gone through. I've changed names to keep everything confidential. My mother, Maria, and her sister, Silvia, once told me about a time their sister, Maribel, was possessed after playing with the Ouija board. This happened in Guanajuato, Mexico, where my family was born and raised. Maria said it all started when Maribel was gifted an Ouija board by a friend. For several days, she would stay in her room playing with her friends in the dark. However, eventually, her friends stopped coming, and Maribel continued to play on her own, always at the same time, with the door shut and the room dark. Maria and Silvia both remember hearing strange noises coming from Maribel's room, sounds they had never heard before. Maribel started looking ill and irritable, and she seemed to get worse as the days went on. Worried about her, Maria went to their mother and told her about the Ouija board. Their mother scolded Maribel and told her she needed to throw it away. Maribel agreed, but instead of getting rid of it, she hid the board under her bed. Maria and Silvia would still see her secretly pull it out to play. The noises continued and only grew louder and more disturbing. Maria described it as if there was a monster under Maribel's bed. The girls finally went to their mother again, this time in desperation. When she heard the noises herself, their mother was horrified. She quickly gathered the girls to sit in prayer. Maria says she can't remember how long they prayed, but eventually the noises stopped. Relieved, they thought they had gotten rid of whatever evil was lurking. But as soon as they stopped praying, they heard another noise, this time from outside the house. Maria described it as the sound of chains being dragged and a carriage circling the home. She said the entire home began to shake. They were all terrified. They rushed to Maribel's room, and what they found was deeply disturbing. Maribel was smiling but began to hit herself, punching her face and stomach. She scratched herself until she drew blood, all while speaking in a language that sounded like a Mexican dialect, one they didn't understand. My mother said that she had heard native people speak a similar dialect, but she and her sisters only knew Spanish. Well, Maribel's voice grew louder, deeper, and filled with pure anger. The family tried to hold her down to stop her from hurting herself, but she was far too strong for the three of them. My mother, Silvia, and my grandmother began to pray again, this time for what felt like an eternity. Eventually, the sunlight came out, and Maribel finally calmed down and fell asleep. My grandmother left Maria and Silvia to watch over her as she went into town to seek help. When my grandmother returned, she was accompanied by a tall man with an old yellowed book and a large cross on his shirt. She told Maria that this man was a priest and he had came to help. The priest isolated Maribel from the rest of the family before beginning the exorcism. Maria recalled that the priest locked the family in her grandmother's bedroom, warning them that whatever demon was inside Maribel would try to lure them out to help her. But it was important to remember it wasn't truly her. Screams that sounded like Maribel being tortured echoed through the house, each one louder than the last. My grandmother wept, begging to be let out to help her daughter, but the priest ignored her. The screams were so unbearable that Maria had to cover her ears and pray. The room began to shake, and they could hear glass shattering outside. The screams eventually turned into deep, animal-like growls. And Maria vividly remembers the smell of rotting meat filling the room, causing them all to gag. Suddenly, everything went silent. Despite the calm, my grandmother urged Maria and Silvia to keep praying. They continued until they heard what sounded like a strong wind blowing through the room, lifting their hair from their faces. Then, finally, it all stopped, and the priest opened the door. Maribel was lying on the floor, covered in scratches and bruises, but she looked more like herself. The priest then instructed my grandmother to get rid of the Ouija board. When Maria went to throw it into the trash, the priest stopped her, warning that the board could not simply be thrown away. If they did, it would find its way back into the house. The only way to get rid of it, he said, was to gift it to someone else. Thank you for reading my family's story. I hope to share more of my personal experiences soon. Anonymous. Hi Daisy, I'm Mani, and I've had countless paranormal experiences since childhood. I also have a heightened sensitivity to the energy of places, which allows me to pick up on the vibes and atmospheres around me. I want to share a few experiences I had while living in El Distrito Federal. I went to the university there in the early 2000s. Coming from the Caribbean, it was a big change for me. Besides learning a new language and adapting to different cultural practices, I had to get used to the energy of Mexico City. El DF has a strong energy, with some areas feeling much worse than others. However, I loved the city and would explore it on the weekends, especially in El Zócalo, where I visited museums, bars, and new restaurants. One day, I decided to check out the Museum of Torture, since I've always loved spooky stuff, so I took my boyfriend at the time with me. The museum was inconspicuous, just a door with a small sign leading into one of many old buildings near the Zócalo. It wasn't very big inside, with about 3 or 4 sections. Each section displayed devices worse than the last. The signage explained how the torture devices were used and even indicated that some on display were the actual devices used years ago, not replicas. At first, I was excited and fascinated, but as I moved through the sections, I began to feel ill. I tried to ignore it and push through, eager to see more. But by the time I reached the final chamber, I was completely overwhelmed. I had a severe headache, felt dizzy, and the room spun around me. My eyes hurt, my legs felt weak, and I could barely stand. I was also nauseous.